Next Gen fam, what is going on? Welcome to another episode, Momentum Audio. What's poppin'? Dylan, what's going on your end, my man?
Oh my goodness, this is the best day of all time. Are you kidding me? I've got two Justins that I'm going to be talking to today. Sign me up. I am ready.
It's going to be a great show. We got a lot of folks tuning in. Shout out to my Grandma Rose. Grandma Rose is a huge Hinge fan. She's like, Justin, how is Hinge coming along? Because she's like waiting for me to kind of get rolling with it. So Grandma, we're bringing you the experts. All right, we're bringing you the experts. Thank you for tuning in. Next Gen fam, I know you are joining us for this. We really appreciate it.
I've got a shout out. I must say, Justin, we get to meet incredible folks, but this one perhaps has resonated with my friends more than any guest we've ever had. I've got people saying, Dylan, I need you to ask, how do I optimize my profile? Can you bring it up on screen? I told them, you got to wait. You got to let
Relax.
the man operate here, you know?
Unreal. I mean, on that note, we got to give a huge shout out to Jenna behind the scenes, who has been taking notes since Justin entered the waiting room. I just on her Hinge profile, it's up, it's ready. She's actively using it to try to incorporate the changes that Justin is suggesting. So we appreciate y'all. Next Gen team, we know that you're here. We're so fired up for this episode. This is a guy with an incredible story. So we're pumped to get in. But Dylan, should we tell them, what is this part of? How can they get more of this going on?
Well, Justin, it's this little thing called Momentum Audio I think you're going for. So here's the deal, team. We want to bring you the most energy of all time right into these AirPods here, right? We're coming at you with game-changing entrepreneurs. And when we say entrepreneurs, you know what that means. That means people chasing greatness, their best life and business dreams possible. We're here weekly, right? We're live today because we had to bring Justin out for you live on air. But check us out, Momentum Newsletter. You know what's up. We see Angel, we see Franzi in the comments. We're going to have fun today.
Their Hinge profiles are up. They're rocking and rolling. All right, Dylan, let's tell us who we're bringing on. Let's bring them on. Let's have some fun.
All right, team. Justin is the founder and CEO at Hinge, the dating app designed to be deleted. He grew up in Louisville, studied at Colgate, and got his MBA at Harvard University, where he really found his calling and his passion. So after founding Hinge in 2011, he tore it down, he rebuilt it. We'll get to that in a second. And then he sold it to Match.com. He is the man. He's such a legend. On and off the court, we'll call it. So without further ado, let's bring Justin to the stage on Momentum Audio. Justin, how you doing today, man?
Hi there. Nice to see you all.
Justin, we're fired up to have you here. We want to begin by going back and looking at Hinge V1. You raised money and you launched Secret Agent Cupid. I got to say, Jenna showed us the mascot. You had Cupid. You got rocking the tuxedo. Walk us through what you were thinking when you launched Hinge before we know it as Hinge. Because our friends, our peers, our next gen community, they know Hinge today. But what was it like when you were launching then, and what were you aiming for?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you've done your research. I haven't thought about Secret Agent Cupid for a while. So the original concept was, and this is intricately tied to my own personal story as well, because I tried to reach out to my college girlfriend to get back together with her. And I was at business school at the time, and she, said no to make the story short. And I was heartbroken. And I was just this, I was this crazy kid in college, and I really, I got sober. I really cleaned up my life coming out of college because my life was just basically a train wreck. But 4 years later, I was awkward. I'd spent my whole life interacting with people drunk or high, honestly. And so I was trying to really connect with people. And I just didn't really know how to socialize. And so I looked at the online dating sites at the time, and nothing really resonated with me. This was 2011. So this is pre-Tinder, pre any of the swipe sites that you know. And the idea of just being able to connect through Facebook friends but people were kind of too awkward to say who they had a crush on. So it's this kind of crush finder model where Secret Agent Cupid you'd say who you had a crush on, and if the other person liked you back, then it would let you know that you both matched. And so that was the original concept that was not a particularly great concept in the beginning or a particularly great brand, but it was the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey for me.
I love that, Justin.
So
So
cool.
many of us out there can resonate with, heck, we have an idea, we have a passion that maybe I want myself. Let's go build it. And no expectations, right? I think you raised a little bit of money for that first company just out of business school. Why not? But you also were coming out of McKinsey, right? You had the corporate background, let's say. So for folks out there who maybe didn't have that opportunity to go learn in that traditional corporate atmosphere, what did you take from that learning in your first work experience that allowed you to hit the ground running as an entrepreneur getting started on your journey?
Not a tremendous amount, honestly. I mean, I think probably what I learned more in consulting is about communication skills and presentation building that I would then use to pitch investors. So that was probably like the main skill that I got, was like how to pitch people on my ideas and concepts. But I think that's probably the only real, and knowing how to like model in Excel. So it wasn't a whole lot. And business school was, I think, helpful in theory, but I came out of HBS thinking like the way you start a company was you write a business plan and you give it to, Andreessen, and then they give you $20 million and then you go build your business. And of course I found out like that is not the way that it actually works out there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's here today. Momentum Audio is giving the truth.
Andreessen, we're coming to you soon. All right, we got some guests from Andreessen coming on, so we're going to double check that fact when we talk to them very soon on Momentum Audio. We'll get back to you, audience. But for us, we know as entrepreneurs, one of the lessons you definitely learned, Justin, was how to roll with the punches from the beginning. As every entrepreneur knows, you have a plan and it goes perfectly. Every step goes right, not even close. And so you got Hinge rocking and rolling V1 2013. You got a launch party rocking and rolling. Go to publish on the App Store, get the ring. Tim Cook on the line. Sorry, Justin, we got to give you directs, not getting on the App Store. So tell us about those early days of growing Hinge. What are some of the punches that you guys were taking, and how did you stay in the game?
Oh, so many. And I really think that what's actually made Hinge so successful now is how dramatically we failed for the first like 5 years of Hinge, and how we really had to build the muscle. Because I think some businesses or some entrepreneurs are in a way cursed with like cheap early success, where they hit some nerve in the market that allows them to just like really take off, but then they don't build the culture or the infrastructure or the learning that they really need to succeed over the long term. And we were blessed with a tremendous amount of hardship and failure over the first 5 years that really allowed us to hone our ability to learn and to adjust and to rebuild and to keep innovating, and just all the resilience that is required to do this. So the early punches, I hardly even know where to begin. I mean, even the original version of Secret Agent Cupid and the branding around that, we actually got a cease and desist letter from, ironically, Match Group about OK Cupid and branding. And so there was like that. And then so it was like the constant rebranding early. It was like you alluded to, the launch party in 2013, where we'd taken our last $25,000 and we're going to throw this giant launch party. And the app was not approved from the App Store, even though we'd submitted like 2 weeks before. And so we had to figure out how to do a launch party with no app in the App Store, which is challenging to say the least. And I think every step of the way, we had no marketing budget in the beginning, right? We had to figure out how to make people fall in love with our product with like zero marketing budget, with zero backend infrastructure that some of the other dating apps that you know of actually had from day one. So all these things, I think, really hardened us and made us much better entrepreneurs and people over the long term. And by the way, like a lot of my early team is still with the company, people who were there in 2013, 2014, 2015, who started as customer service agent, person who bought our Facebook ads, another customer service agent, are now my, COO, my chief product officer.
No way.
Yeah. So they've all like mostly grown up totally within the company.
Wow. That's amazing. You use the word resilience, and I think that is such a core value of yours, Justin. And my Justin and I, we can relate. You talk about the event gone awry. I'll never forget watching at our opening Next Gen Summit 2015, the backdrop of the stage falls on the opening keynote, and we're sitting there thinking it's all over, right? Before we've begun, it's over. But fast forward a bit for your story in Hinge, Justin. 2011, you launched, right? 2011, 2012. You're building, finding some early success. 2015, 2016 comes around, and you're like, all right, time out. We're tearing this thing all the way down. We're going to stop this product. Not even going to work on it for about 9 months. What were you seeing, and how did you possibly communicate that to your team, which up to that point, you were the leader, and you referred to it, I think, in a previous interview as Moses leading the people around the desert, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about the leadership
That's
learning
how it
there.
felt in 2016. So, so a little context. So 2015, now, a couple other competitors that you probably are aware of had launched at this point. Whereas when I started Hinge, there were no other dating apps, and they were growing pretty well and pretty fast. And so we were no longer new and novel. We'd actually just raised a pretty big fundraising round. We had like $14 million, and we still had $10 million in the bank, and we were still growing. But as I really looked at the market, I was like, I don't think where we're going. We're just not highly differentiated from these other apps. Like, we've been copying them, they've been copying us, and they're bigger than us and they're better funded than us. So I really don't think that this is a long-term recipe for success. And so I went to my investors on my board, and I said, I think there's an opportunity here. A lot of the people who got on these apps early are now aging, and they're getting to the age where they actually really want to find their person. They want to start settling down. They want to start getting married. So what if these apps that are designed for kind of like fun and broad engagement aren't really designed if you're really trying to zero in on your person. So what if we like tore it down and rebuilt something from scratch? And they're like, well, okay, well, what would that look like? And I was like, I don't exactly know yet. I think it would have these general characteristics, but I really don't know. And that's where the Moses leading people to the desert. So I went back to my team. I actually let half the team go because we were at 30 people at that point, which is too many people, I think, to start from scratch again. And so we had to lower our cash burn and really get a small group of people back around the table. So let go of half the team, took the remaining half and said, let's go. There's this new opportunity. Let's go build this new thing. And they trusted me, and we went and did it. And it was definitely a year of ups and downs. And like, are we really going to figure out something better than what we already had? And we finally launched in October of 2016, the new Hinge, which is very similar to the Hinge that you know today, which involved mandatory prompts and liking content, a completely re-engineered algorithm, eventually your turn, and we met the things so that we could actually measure whether people were going on dates. And that I think is like the biggest learning and mistake that I made early on, is that we were really obsessed with like growth and all these VC metrics, like engagement and user growth and all these other things, instead of focused on what our users actually wanted, which was great first dates. And so when we stopped focusing on just like the near-term growth and engagement metrics and actually started focusing on the long-term metric of like, are we delivering value to our users that they came to us for? That really was a game changer. And it was slow at first, but then it got really fast. And so 2018, 2019, of course, really started to accelerate for us.
Something that's so clear from anybody who's watching this, and we have people in the comments talking about the advertisements and the commercials that you're all putting out. There's clearly such a voice behind Hinge, and honestly, it's like the voices behind Hinge you want as your boy or your girl. Like, they're on your team, they're helping you out, and it's so positive. The advertisements are so positive and uplifting. How did you take an industry, dating apps, that was all about hookup culture, all about, if I brought up dating apps in a corporate setting a couple of years ago, that's not Hinge, like this is not talk for corporate, and yet pre-stage we're all schmoozing about Hinge. How did you start to get folks rallying around a unified voice? Where did that voice of the company come, and what were some of the early influences behind such a positive, uplifting, designed to be deleted message?
Yeah, so I think this is another really big learning that I made between, we'll say, like Hinge version 1, which is pre-2016, and Hinge version 2, post-2016, is how important it is to get really explicit about your culture. It's not, if you let it sort of just emerge organically, then you don't have that much control over it, and it stays kind of bland. But if you get really explicit and clear about your values and how those values come to life, then I think you have the opportunity to create a much clearer brand and voice and visual language and company culture that I think ultimately work much better when they're all completely aligned around a core set of values and a core set of beliefs. So, designed to be deleted, the tagline came out of our belief that our number one metric is great first dates, period. Like, if we release a feature and it doesn't lead to more great first dates, then it's not a feature that we should launch. And so that level of focus led to a focused marketing campaign. We're like, what if we just told the world that this is what we're doing? Like, it's kind of counterintuitive to release a tagline that's about you and not about your user, right? If you think about like most quintessential ones, like just do it or think different. It's like, oh, this is the identity that you want as someone who's it's about you. Design to be deleted is about us. It's like not what a marketer would say is a good tagline, but yet it's so sticky and so clear because it's so counterintuitive for the market, because most apps, of course, want you to be like stuck and addicted to their app so that you will like spend more time on it. So I think that level of like clarity and focus really helps to get to, the ad campaign, but also internal in our culture and like how we organize groups and work streams and what we prioritize over what. I think it all just has to ultimately be aligned. And so we're really, really clear and explicit about that value and just our general values of authenticity and courage and empathy and how those live in every part of the organization.
I love that, Justin. It's so intentional, right? It's not something that you just stumble upon. And I think you said in a previous blog post interview, we create the one, right? And you were referring to your match, your perfect destined other, significant other. But the same thing holds true, whether it's your company or your values. You can't wake up one day. I think for Justin and I, one of the most popular questions we get is, hey, how'd you meet your co-founder, right? How'd you become the perfect dynamic duo, so handsome, great beard, great hair, right? How'd that all happen? Well, it wasn't one day we woke up and it was perfect, right? It takes effort. And so how have you built for you and your culture at Hinge these sentiments, these values of authenticity and being relationship focused? How does that manifest in the day-to-day, perhaps, for a Hinge team member?
Yeah, so something that I really did, and I'll give credit actually to Ray Dalio on this one, because I read his book Principles a while back, and those principles are great for a hedge fund. They're not really the right principles for us, but his core idea was that you get better as an organization when you run, make a mistake, analyze the mistake, learn from it, and sort of redocument what it is, what your sort of like new philosophy on life is. And then you run with that philosophy, and then you make more mistakes, and then and so that process of really documenting really clearly how everything should work at the company. So like, how does authenticity live for promo comp? And how do we have authenticity and transparency and empathy and courage in our promo comp process? Like, what does that actually look like? What do reviews look like in a world that those are my primary values? How do one-on-ones work? How do meetings work? And just the level of, it really holds a high bar for how transparent we are as a company with our employees, with everything. Like I, as a leader at the company, I'm like really, really transparent about all our financials, our good and our bad. I think a lot of leaders out there really like to just like pump up everyone and just share the sort of glossy sheen, and then all of a sudden you find out the company's bankrupt. When we almost went bankrupt in 2016, or not 2016, like 2017, 2018, when we sort of went through a rough patch, I was like showing up. I was like, here's our cash burn. We have like 3 months of cash left, everyone. So, we really have to turn this thing around. I have friends who are entrepreneurs who are like, would never tell their people their financials. Even back in the day, we used to just post everyone's salaries just like on an Excel sheet so everyone could see it, because I just believed in sunlight is just great for, making sure that you are fair and clear and you have the hard conversations up front so people don't get misaligned. So that's how authenticity comes to life, for example. Same with courage and the way that we do OKRs and the way that we really like people to push stretch goals and how we celebrate failure instead of, punishing people for failure. So there's a lot of that.
Super awesome, man. It's bold too. Transparency. I love the way you said it. It forces everybody to get better too. And once you're transparent as a leader, it forces everybody in your organization to really try to understand what's going on. And it does, it's challenging as a founder, as a CEO, to unleash everything to the team. But I think Ray Dalio is totally right. Total plug. You got to check out. We have a great Ray Dalio episode on Momentum Audio, and we'll have to get you and Ray. We got to hear Ray's take on Hinge and what's going on. But you as a leader, Justin, especially in the space that you're in, your person is the front of this brand. You're out here, you're talking about Hinge, you're talking about your dating story, your love story. It's in the New York Times, it's on Amazon. What is it like having your personal and professional life so intertwined? For Dylan and I, from the very beginning, we started this out of high school, NGHQ, and we were nervous at the beginning. Look, we like professional lives, but we're personal guys. We have different views, whatever it might be. And we have a great advisor, shout out Rich Keller, I know is watching right now, who said, no, you got to get out in front of your brand. And that's something that Dylan and I are constantly trying to navigate. And we know so many entrepreneurs in the next gen community are thinking about my personal brand, my professional brand. Do I got to be in the front? I'm nervous. My story is so vulnerable. How did you think about that? Because now it's very clear, Justin, your story is the front cover really of Hinge. Was that always like that? And how did that come about?
Yeah, it's definitely been picked up on. It started with the Modern Love column that then got turned into the Amazon series. And obviously it's like a pretty dramatic story. I don't want to rehash it here because it would take me a while, but flying over to Switzerland right before my ex-girlfriend, the one that I tried to get back together with back in the day that originally inspired Hinge. She was about to get married. I flew over to Switzerland, asked her to call for a wedding and moved back to America with me, which she did. And that's my wife now. And we have a little 18-month-old who's sleeping in this room right behind me. And so, wild story for sure. And it truly, genuinely shaped a lot of, that happened in 2015. And it's no coincidence that at the end of 2015 or early 2016, I rebooted the app completely away from this idea that you find the one to the idea that you create the one. So the idea of, if I just go through enough people, like one day I'll happen upon the perfect person and then everything will be good from then on. And what I learned when the so-called perfect person re-entered my life, who I'd been like dreaming about and hoping to get back together with for 8 years, came back into my life, I realized, wait, it's, this fairy tale, as that story sounds like, it was not a fairy tale. Like, we had a lot to work out and we were living in a West Village together in a 350 square foot apartment. And, it was like, and what I learned really creates connection isn't happening upon the perfect person. It's about authenticity and vulnerability and courage and empathy. It's about those ingredients. And I think it's no coincidence that our values are, I think, what are the ingredients for a really great relationship. And so that really reshaped how I thought about how the app should work and got rid of the swipe and introduced the idea of these vulnerable prompts and actually liking something about the person and really slowing the whole process down and focusing on quality over quantity. So the story truly is intertwined. And but it's definitely surreal to get a phone call one day and hear that they're filming I didn't even know about the Amazon thing until the last day of filming, and it happened to be going on down the street from where I live in New York. And someone gave me a call and they're like, "Did you know that they're filming a story about your life like down the street?" And Dev Patel is playing you. And so Kate and I show up on set, and there's like hundreds of people, and they've set up like the Hinge launch party, and it was just, that was a surreal moment, especially for someone who doesn't have an Instagram account or use Facebook or, I'm relatively, other than that, a private guy.
That is amazing. So anybody out there, go get in that Hinge profile and talk to your matches, right? Don't keep swiping, don't keep matching, actually invest and make it happen. I love that. Justin, you are clearly someone who brings your full self to everything, whether it's that relationship, your company. I want to dive in though to Justin himself, right? What is behind the scenes? So talk to us about some of the habits, some of the practices that are your, what I like to call BAMs, your bare ass minimums that you are committed to every single day to be your best self.
Yeah. There's a lot. I'm a pretty high maintenance person. So
no pads out.
There are some really core, I think, things that I've learned over time that make me a much more effective person. And in a way, going back to the earlier conversation about earlier hardship shaping you and turning them into strengths. My experience with addiction, I think, was actually really instructive because we live in such a distracted world. And I think in a way, we're all addicts now with social media, and like we all have this thing in our back pocket that we just like constantly want to check and see what's going on. And if someone sent us an email, or if someone sent us a Slack, or if someone liked my Instagram post or whatever, and just like this constant pull. And so it's the reason that I don't really engage with social media. I just find it too distracting and addictive. And my experience with addiction is that, I could cut alcohol and drugs, but then I found myself gravitating towards sugar and work and all these other things that would give me a short-term hit. And it was like, I really had to work on my relationship with all of those things and whittling them down. And I found a few tools that were really useful to me that are not novel, like meditation and yoga and journaling, and just using those as like daily rituals to ground me that have, I think, they're really, really useful. Like I think the marginal difference of each day, instead of at the end of the day, like popping on Netflix or, like scrolling through Instagram, like I'm sitting there letting my mind relax a little bit, having dinner with my family, and then kind of like journaling and dreaming about the future and what comes next. And so you do that every day, instead of like getting distracted with like whatever incoming crap is. And the same, by the way, with the company, right? I could spend all day if I wanted in my inbox and in my Slack, just like responding to random incoming stuff. But I don't. My like turnaround time on an email is like between 7 and 14 days, and on a Slack is like 2 to 3. So because I'm just not that, I don't pay that much attention to that, because I'm much more focused on my one-on-one meetings and, imagining the future. And I think that also has had a really big effect on Hinge's success and allows us to reach for really big goals instead of the marginal day-to-day management.
Justin, thank you so much for sharing all this with us, man. Like our audience is so really, everyone who's watching live, thank you for tuning in and sharing what you're resonating with. Dylan and I talk about this all the time. We love bringing on guests and talking about this stuff because you pick up the great magazines, you look online, and it's none of this. It's founder, CEO, boom, 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 sick life, travel, jet, jacuzzi. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's not like that. You don't even know the beginning of that. And I think probably such an interesting aspect for you too, Justin, is that your wife is also an entrepreneur. So you have that whole entrepreneurial spirit in your family. What is that like?
Yeah.
Being with an entrepreneur.
It's actually so amazing for our relationship. I think it builds a lot of empathy, because it's hard to know the founder CEO journey until you live it yourself. And I will say that it's like a really big empathy builder and connector for us, for her to understand how hard it really is to build a company. And she's finding a lot of success with her company. It's really cool to see. Cool. She is a amazing marketer and salesperson. And so, Kate McLeod, which is she makes these cocoa butter body stone moisturizers that are really popular now on like
get her on the show, man. Get her on the
Goop
show.
And all this. Oh, I'm sure she'd love to come on. She's incredible. And so, yeah, I just think it gives us a lot of empathy for one another's struggles that I think can be difficult for a lot of founders or CEOs who don't have that shared connection with their partner. Yeah.
Justin, on that note, as an entrepreneur, you have the most valuable resource of time, right? It's where you're putting your time, where you're putting your commitments. How do you think about, Justin, now looking back, talking to a couple of founders here, young, perhaps single on the market, how do you balance the personal expectations of, look, your most important relationship or decision is that life partner, but you also know you could work endlessly, right? What is the work-life harmony, balance? How do you think about that equation?
Yeah, I used to not believe in a separation, right? My old philosophy probably was like, oh, well, you should love your work and your work should be part of your life. And so there shouldn't be a separation. You should always kind of be on. And now I don't believe that really at all. I just find that time spent resting and restoring and having your mind on something else other than work is so critical. And so whether it's like playing with my kid or hobbies or reading something that's like not about business or self-improvement, right, is just so useful to allow your mind. It's the same reason that people have like great shower thoughts, right? You have to get your mind off of the thing, and then I come back way re-energized, and otherwise I just really start burning out. I mean, I think we all, especially right now, are all feeling a lot of the burnout that comes from endless time spent on our work and in the digital world. And but that rest and play, like very basic mammalian needs that are like, those allow me to come back and be so much more efficient and so much more fueled with my time. And so it's not just like a diminishing marginal return on time spent on work each day. It's a negative marginal return. It actually like makes you less productive for the day's work the next day. And so I think about it as a multiplication problem, not a subtraction problem.
The boundaries that you're clearly thinking about for yourself, you had enough data points of Here's what I need to be my best self. And here's not only, this is going to be better for my organization. I'm going to contribute more to my team if I am in a better position. And there are a lot in the comments that are saying they're hearing this, they're feeling this. And we have a couple of users who have met on Hinge and they're like, Justin, call us out. We got to get some sponsorship action coming. Recently in 2020, you guys hit a huge boom with a new audience that wasn't necessarily so explosive for you. Had one of the biggest, in my opinion, in 2020, a whole mega sponsorship advertising campaign with presidential candidate Mayor Pete at the time, who is now coming into the new administration. What happened there? Give us some behind the scenes of what went down. How did that come about, and what impact that has had on the Hinge business? Because we hear it's been awesome for a new demographic for you guys.
Yeah, there was no behind the scenes. And I think once again, this gets to the, if you build a great product that works, then, it kind of spreads itself, especially in this world. So we found out about Pete Buttigieg meeting Justin just through the New York Times wedding announcement that happened before he was a real presidential contender, and no one else knew about it. And I had a junior employee come to me and they're like, this person's really a rising star in the Democratic Party. We should, it's pretty exciting that he met his husband on Hinge. And so we're like, okay, whatever. And then obviously when he ran for president and got a lot, and was sort of the very it person for a moment in that race, there was a lot more attention paid to that. And so the adoption among LGBTQ, especially gay men, I think just like really skyrocketed at that time. And it's a really strong part of our user base. And we're actually right now thinking about, as a company, like, how do you not just build a product for the average user, but how, especially something that's so intimate as a dating product, like how do we really custom tailor it for each audience, and how do we increase inclusivity for different people who have different needs and different styles to dating. And so that's something that's like a really big piece of Hinge's, both like just in service of, I think the right thing to do, but also in service of our own growth, a big strategy for 2021 and beyond.
Super cool.
I love that. That's amazing, Justin. And here you are in year 9, year 10, year 9. What are we in?
Yeah, year, let's see, 2011, 2000. I'm like just rounding out my 10th year.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Year 10, almost year 11. And yet, I heard you say in an interview just a couple months ago, I really think we're in the beginning, right? I loved that mindset, because something Justin and I have taken from so many great leaders, to name one, Jeff Bezos. He says it's day one at Amazon, right? All the time. Here you are going on year 11. It's day one at Hinge. So talk to us about what's coming next, what our audience should be looking out for Justin, the entrepreneur, the innovator, always looking for ways to serve his audience.
Yeah, I do believe that we're in the early innings of how apps can help people with their dating lives. If you think about this, really is the most important, or one of the most important decisions that you ever make in your life. And most of us make it without really any guidance, certainly not like data-backed guidance about like what works and what doesn't, and what values matter and what don't, and how to have this, I think, a much, much more efficient and fruitful and successful dating life. So I think there's a lot that we can do to help people along that path. And some of that's product UX, and some of that is changing our own behavior as humans and how we approach dating, right? Like a dating app can really only do so much, but I think I've learned over time, as I alluded before, like I think a relationship is like 20% finding the right person and 80% your own communication skills, your own relationship skills, your own ability to like have integrity and commitment and all of these things that are actually going to help you have a successful relationship. And so I think about, Hinge Labs just launched, and, traditional product research is about how do we change the product to adapt to our users. Hinge Labs is really looking at like, how should users change their behavior to adapt to the product and have a more successful dating life? Like, what pictures should you choose? Like how often, like when should you log in? And that's the very like tactical stuff. But then also like, how do you show up on a first date? How do you decide whether to go on a second date? Guidance along this whole process, I think, is really, really important. And we're really excited to approach this from a data-backed, research guided, but still human and heart-centered way, versus, just random people giving you random advice based on their like N=5 experience. So that I think is really, really interesting, exciting in one big dimension. Obviously, video and audio and richer experiences is especially accelerated by COVID, a big part of dating, and really excited to see where that goes from here. But I think could make dating way more fun and efficient and heartening experience, right? Like being able to have a video or audio conversation with someone before you show up on a date, if that were normalized, just think how many bad dates that would save you, how much time and energy that would save you, so that you really spend your time productively with the right types of people. So there's a lot to still do on this front.
I know our team is so fired up for Hinge Labs, and we think that entire concept is great. As we near, it was near the end of our interview, Justin, I can't let you go until we ask for what are some of the insights that you have, knowing the data on the back end, that you think most folks who are using Hinge or using dating apps wouldn't get? What are some of the, you named a lot of those tactical tips. Give us something here that our users, I got a group of ladies in New York who are watching this right now on our team. Franzi, Jenna, Rachel, Matt is with them as well. They want to know, they got their notepads out, they got Hinge up. What are something you can tell our folks who are listening on how to best engage?
Yeah, well, I think, so my biggest piece of advice on profiles, which is one element of it, is really to be vulnerable and show a more like authentic side of yourself. And for each of your photos, and we have photo prompts now as well, which actually work much better. So if you add a photo prompt to your photo, and also our prompts, if you spend a little bit of time to say something that's more unique, and you think to yourself, like, how would I, if I were looking at this, would this start a conversation? How would I respond to this? Is there a way in here for me to begin a conversation? That I think is like the best way to look at that, and not think of it as just a chore and like, oh, put like a one-word answer or a two-word answer, because that really determines the quality of the conversations that you're going to end up having on the app, which are going to lead to dates. So that's obviously a really big thing. And the second thing that's kind of, surprising, it's so basic, but is the average user on Hinge only sends a couple likes a day or 3 likes a day, but we give, around 10 a day. And so there is a volume aspect to this, and you have to kind of shoot your shot, right? So either being able to send those 10 likes a day really makes a huge difference in terms of your likelihood to get to a first date, and also your our ability to learn your taste. Like the more feedback that you give us about who you like and who you don't like, we're going to come and get a sense of your taste much, much better, and your Discover experience is going to get better every single day. So that also really matters.
I'm on it, man. I'm on. Our team's our team's in the comments. They're on it.
We just had 9 Hinge Premium account signups. We'll sponsor one. How about that? Message us with your number one takeaway from Justin's interview, and we'll sponsor it for you. This has been unbelievable. Before we let you go, final question today, Justin. You just sold to Match.com. Congratulations. We are such fans of yours, and know that there is only bright ahead for you and Hinge. But talk to us, Justin, about what you see in your future, right? Is it staying at Hinge and continuing to build the dream there? Are you exploring other passions? What's around the corner for you?
Yeah, well, we began our relationship in 2017, where they made their first investment, and they fully closed the acquisition, I think, in the end of 2018. And so I've been there, for now 2 years since the acquisition, and I still see so much opportunity here. Like I have a really, really great relationship with Match Group. There's still a lot. We still have our autonomy. We're building a new office right now in the meatpacking district, and so especially this year. Like I really want to get back in the office with the team, and I just think there's still so much more to do at Hinge. And so I spent so much time building this culture and this company and this product and this brand. So I don't think I'm a serial entrepreneur type. I am this is my baby, and I'm a committed relationship kind of guy. And so I am, really excited to see where we take Hinge next.
Next Gen fam, Justin McLeod, founder and CEO of Hinge. Justin, thank you so much for joining us on Momentum Audio. We know it's day one, and we're pumped to stay in touch as you continue to grow.
All right. Thanks very much, you all. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Be well. That was awesome. That was
He is
awesome.
the man.
He's the
Oh
man.
my goodness. So
Yeah.
authentic, so honest. And he loves what he does. You can get it from the passion. He's still doing this thing in year 11. Justin, we should be so lucky.
Yeah.
I love
I love how he said that at the end. He's like, I'm not a serial entrepreneur. So many entrepreneurs, I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I'm a committed guy relationship. I'm a committed guy to Hinge. And meatpacking that office, they have no problem recruiting. I got to say, Hinge, the brand is incredible. The messaging is clear, and clearly the authenticity and commitment to their values, unparalleled.
And I think such an evolution in just the world. Talk about a rising tide they are catching and leading, right? Is the normalization of the dating app. And he was talking about the video date. I can't wait to see how everybody out there, especially the busy entrepreneur, how they can benefit from what Hinge is leading in innovation. Unbelievable to pick his brain today. Such an A+ founder.
Yeah, and I know they're not lying. It's just day one. Hinge Labs, it's coming. I cannot wait to see what they continue to do. And Next Gen Fam, we can't wait to see what you continue to do and build. We know you're out here. You have your personal lives. You're using Hinge. You're dating. You're building your businesses, building your empires, trying to keep going. We want to hear from you. So what did you like about Justin, and what did you take away from his story, and how are you going to build that into your own organization? We know a lot of you have tactical takeaways. We also want to know what are your thematic, strategic takeaways of what you're taking and how you're building.
And hold me to that Hinge Premium account. We've got you. Reach out to us. We love you. We'll be back here, as you know, online. Get on Momentum newsletter. More content from Justin and other game-changing entrepreneurs. But thank you, team, for tuning in today to this special edition live Momentum audio filming with Justin McLeod, CEO and founder of Hinge. We are so fired up, and we'll see you back here very, very soon.